Welcome to the Dark Academicals, the podcast where we delve into the mythos of dark academia one book at a time. I'm Sarah Purnell.
And I'm Sophie Waters, and today we're going to be looking at Catherine House by Elisabeth Thomas. Catherine House isn't just a university, it's a legendary institution that only accepts the brightest and the boldest to spend 3 years locked away with no phones, no TV, and no contact with the outside world. Catherine produces fame and accolades, stars and politicians. But they all love Catherine and refuse to speak of its secrets outside of the school walls. When Ines is accepted to Catherine upon the recommendation of her favourite teacher, she's relieved to escape her life and be ensconced by the school. It quickly becomes clear to Ines that all isn't as it seems at Catherine, and she takes it upon herself to uncover what's really happening behind closed doors and why Catherine chose her. As usual, we are going to be talking about the book in full, twists, the ending, all of the reveals, everything.
So yeah, if you haven't read the book, then maybe go and read the book and then come back. We won't be offended. And if you have read it, welcome along for the ride as we discuss it in full.
For our final episode of season 1.
Final episode
of the Dark Academicals.
How did we get here?
We did it! So, as per usual, we are going to look at all of our big markers of what we think makes a dark academia novel based around The Secret History as the touchstone novel. And we're going to look at that in reference to Catherine House. Just going to quickly run over what our kind of tenets of dark academia are. So we've got a higher education setting, often on campus and usually elite or exclusive in some way. Old Gothic architecture. A preoccupation with classical studies, whether Latin, Greek, philosophy or even literature. Murder. A dark, moody and or haunting vibe.
Ooh.
Hero worship of a particular figure or author. Old money, which collides with new money or no money.
Money, 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 money.
Exactly that. Whether as a literary device or pathetic fallacy. Underdeveloped social skills, or the protagonist being portrayed as an outsider. And I think, like, straight off the bat from us, Catherine House very much hit the mark of dark academia, didn't it?
Yes.
So, let's look at these in a bit closer detail.
First up, we have a higher education setting, which is often on campus and usually elite or exclusive in some way. And I just put, yep.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It is a university, but it's not a university in any traditional sense of the word, is it?
No, I think it's very much cult-like, but it's like...
Yeah, it is.
It's very much how... It's almost set up a bit like... the school in Madam, which I can't remember what the school's called now, but
nor can I.
But it's that kind of like people, yeah. If you know, you know, and if you don't know, you don't know. Like there's no like, oh, I know something about them. No, you don't.
No,
you know nothing.
You either know or you don't. Yeah,
yeah.
It's definitely that. I actually found this really like this passage about the school. I don't know whether it was. I think it was Ines describing it. She says, what was Catherine exactly? Let's say a community of minds, a crucible of experimental reformist liberal arts study, research and development institute for the most radical new material sciences, a post-secondary school more selective than any Ivy League, and so terrifically endowed that tuition was free to any student lucky enough to be accepted. A tiny, pioneering, fanatically private place that by some miracle of chemistry produced some of the world's best minds. Prize-winning authors, artists and inventors, diplomats, senators, Supreme Court justices, 2 presidents of the United States. A school and an estate, a complex confection of architecture and design, a house, a magnificent house, miles off the highway in black woods behind a long iron gate.
Anyone say Freemasons? Can anyone say Illuminati?
It is that kind of mixture though, isn't it? It's that elusive Ivy League, but also a secret society, but also basically a cult.
Yeah. I don't know if... Because you read the Kindle version, didn't you?
I did.
And I read the paperback. I don't know, at the end of the Kindle version, do you have the interview with the author?
No, I didn't.
So Elisabeth Thomas at the end, she's got like an excerpt from an interview where she talks about Yale. I lied, it's not in the interview, but there's a bit at the back of the book that says the inspiration behind Catherine House, where the first line is, and this is what she writes, "I was raised to despise Yale University." So my grandfather had been one of 4 black men in Yale's class of 53, and then his father went to Yale, and when it was her turn to apply to college, her dad said, "You can go to any school you like as long as it's not Yale." I chose Yale, of course. I thought that was really interesting as well. Like, if you have to see if you can. Why am I showing you? You can't see it through a microphone.
It's backwards.
And through a microphone. But I thought it was just really interesting to see her kind of perspective on Yale, and obviously her father and her grandfather, because I mean, I'm currently doing a rewatch of Gilmore Girls, so I've been seeing Yale through Rory's perspective, which is very, very different. And I can't remember what my point was going to be, but there you go. It's just interesting. It's the inspiration behind Catherine House. Yeah, it's a really interesting comparison.
That definitely anchors it, doesn't it, in that idea of the exclusive Ivy League and the secret societies.
Yeah.
There's a breeding ground for dark academia, isn't it, really?
Yeah. It's also another element that seems to kind of connect these books when we latch on one that is dark academia, or as dark academia leanings. Is it set in the 90s? Yeah,
97, 96? Somewhere around there,
isn't
it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's something I think about that. I think it might be the technology stages of that time period, because obviously there was TV and, I mean, there was internet, right? But not not easily accessible at-home internet, and you didn't have 6 million channels, and not many people had mobile phones, kind of thing. So it was still very restricted in that way. I guess that kind of contributes to the atmosphere, doesn't it? Like, someone would have snuck a mobile in if that was set in.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think setting it in the 90s, I think I've said this before, the 90s is like the last slow decade.
Yeah.
Where information was just slower. It doesn't mean it was any less important or any less good. I don't know what the right word is, but just because we have information at our fingertips all the time.
Too much.
It doesn't necessarily mean anything stays in, but before the internet, you had to go and seek it, and you probably had to remember a lot more, because you couldn't just be like, oh, I'll just Google it later.
Yeah, exactly. And it's lots of paper trails.
Yeah.
And paper trails can be destroyed, and secrets can be kept, and
like I say, paper trails can also reveal a lot too.
Yeah. And I think it's that that privacy was easier in the 90s in that way.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Agreed.
So definitely ticks the box for that aspect.
Yeah, higher and education a long and rambling start for us.
Yeah.
We're sorry if you're here for 3 hours.
I just really like this book.
It's fantastic, yeah. Spoiler alert, we both loved it. So, next is Old Gothic architecture. My gut reaction is yes, but I don't actually remember being introduced to the building outside.
No, I think... But I take the word Gothic in this sense, in the more of the genre term than of the architecture
as in
term.
The physical, yeah.
Because it definitely...
Yeah, it's definitely that, yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely that Gothic haunted house with hidden rooms and secret passages and blocked off, and that kind of things added on and melded together.
Yeah. And it's not exactly decorated in a very modern way. Like, it's not decorated with the latest 90s mod cons or anything. It's falling apart.
Yeah, and they've got 4 computers and they're all restricted, and yeah, but big spilling over libraries and an art gallery and
just a casual art gallery.
all the baths. Baths under the school. Yeah.
And they're constantly finding new rooms as well, aren't they? They're like, oh, come and see what we found in the attic. And you're like, how did you not find this before?
You're like, how big is this school?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually want to touch on the Gothic house a little bit later on as well.
Of course you do.
It's just interesting, okay?
It is your concentration, as they may say at Catherine House.
Yeah. Speaking of concentrations, the next kind of thing we're going to look at is like the preoccupation with a study. And it's not classical studies, it's not art, it's not literature, it's not language. It's plasm in Catherine House.
Plasm? I thought I was reading it wrong for a while. I was like, plasm? I don't know if I was just reading it really wrong, but it is plasm.
It is literally plasm, yeah. So, it's like a study of like, it's a material sciences kind of study. Like almost theoretical pseudoscience.
Yeah.
But also not. Because it kind of leans into the sci-fi a little bit there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But not fully, not enough to tip it over.
Yeah.
So this is where all of the big spoilers start, basically. So
yes.
A second reminder, if you haven't finished the book and don't want to be spoiled, now is your time to go and finish the book and come back later. Okay, good. Right. So plasm is, let me see if I can get this, because all three of them are like, I don't think I really understand what this is. And I don't think I really understand what this is.
No.
But it's like a formative matter, the thing that everything is made of, that connects everything.
The best way I could kind of make sense in my head, even though, if they actually explained what it was, but they don't, because that's the point. Anyway, I touch on that again later. It's like the Force in Star Wars. It connects. It's in all of us. It connects everything. And if you can somehow harness its power, you can do great things with it.
Mm-hmm. And terrible things.
And terrible things.
Even the characters don't really know what it is or how to describe it.
Yeah.
But the scenes in the book make you understand it in a way that you can't articulate, or we can't articulate anyway. And that is like the main concentration. And concentrations are their topics of like close study. Like so you would pick major. Something. Yeah. Or like a dissertation piece or a PhD piece.
Yeah. I mean, that seems to be like the driving force for a lot of people. Like that's what they want to study. But for those that don't take that concentration or don't kind of qualify to be able to, or they're not accepted onto that course, essentially, what's left are still very kind of older studies. It's not like they're not studying they don't come out of there with a degree in communications or like a degree in hospitality or or even English literature or it's really quite bizarre things that they study. So Ines ends up concentrating on art history, but the study themselves are made almost impenetrable by just like the course title. So her main concentration is art history, but she has to study German to be able to kind of understand the basics of that. But it'll also be, I mean, I should have wrote some of them down, but some of the actual like classes themselves are named such ridiculous things that they sound impenetrable.
And they don't seem to have any connection to art history. And
they seem to take pride in that kind of like minutiae of a subject. It's almost like, well, to be able to study this properly, you have to have all like this and this. Otherwise, you're not going to be accomplished in a subject. But it's all absolute fluff when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
Because, we find out, at the end where Victoria is kind of saying to Ines, like, oh, you were you could have been so brilliant. You were so brilliant. But basically she says, even I didn't understand what you were writing your project about, because it doesn't matter at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
It's something like you don't have the critical analysis knowledge to make a good essay, but your brain works in a weird way, and that's why we like you.
Yeah.
Like, you're saying things that don't say anything, and that's what tickles our pickle, really.
Oh, I mean, it's almost like she'd listen to this podcast.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
I think another thing that's interesting with like plasm and the study of that is where in other dark academia novels, when there is that laser focus, we see like that environment, that classroom, that group of people, but we don't see that kind of affect anyone outside of that group.
Yeah.
Whereas we are looking into that group, because Ines isn't one of the plasm concentration. She is experiencing not the fallout, the effects of what they are studying in this whole school experiment.
Yeah.
Which I think is a really different approach to that preoccupation. Even though she is still obsessed with it.
Yeah.
She's a distance.
You get to kind of see almost like how she would have looked like if she had been in that concentration, because we see her seeing Theo kind of change, and obviously what it did to Baby to pursue it, and also Anna, who tried to pursue it and kind of was like, no, not for me.
And watching Sandy.
Yeah,
which I think follows on quite nicely to murder. Because I said death, but not murder, but also murder.
Well, is what I wrote. I put you because you can argue that they all experience a kind of death at the hands of Catherine.
Yeah.
At the house. They all kind of, they're told to leave their past behind. They're told to not even talk about their past.
Yeah.
They kind of have to be reborn into this image that Catherine House wants.
Yeah, that's true.
But also were not Sandy and Baby murdered, even though they agreed. Did they?
But can you really agree to that once you've been indoctrinated into this?
Exactly.
That's that cult thing, isn't it? It's that.
Yeah.
What level of choice is there in that environment? I think
not a lot.
No. I think that's where Yaya comes in. And she's like, you to Ines, she says, you have to think about getting out. You have to choose to rewire your brain in order to survive this kind of thing.
I love her.
She's amazing. Yeah. She's great. She loves rifling through all of the attics, finding whatever she can find, and bartering and exchanging all of the bits, because they're not allowed like objects from the real world or things from home, and you have to accrue points and purchase them in the commissary.
Yeah, but like a prison.
But it's donated random crap from old Catherine Allums. It's not like it's not normal things.
Yeah, so they're all given a wardrobe, so they all wear jeans and t-shirt.
Jeans and a white t-shirt and like canvas tennis shoes type thing, and then it swaps for boots, and they get a coat in winter.
Yeah, and they get shorts and sandals in the summer.
Very madam. And I think there's definitely a dark, moody and or haunting vibe. Like, the characters go to Catherine haunted by their lives. Yeah. They're all traumatised in one way or another. And Ines is kind of escaping a traumatic incident where she gets involved with the wrong people and drinking and partying, and then one morning she wakes up next to a girl who has died in the night. We don't know what happened. She doesn't know because Ines sees this and runs. And goes to Catherine to escape this. And that haunting kind of follows her all the way through.
And they're all kind of running away from something, or they feel like they are.
Yeah, definitely. There is a quote. Here we go. I think it's something Victoria says to Ines. She says, "Everyone here was here desperately. All of us, for one reason or another, had nowhere else to go." So not Victoria, because that wouldn't make sense. I think that was Ines. But yeah, this is like a last resort place. Like, if they don't thrive in this environment, then this environment that was developed for them to be different,
yeah,
then they're not really going to get on very well, basically.
No. I think also the writing itself kind of has that kind of moody element, doesn't it? It has that very atmospheric, detail orientated, but the details that it focuses on is often very, very visceral. But then we'll leave out things, and you think, why didn't you describe that? But I found that really interesting.
Yeah, because there's lots of minutiae.
Yeah.
On the everyday things, but then the big issues are just floated past, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like, we get so much information about what they eat.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, not only because I like food, but I thought like the symbolism of that was really interesting.
It was really clever. I did like that a lot. But I think that plays into that atmosphere of, like, on the surface, this is an everyday school. It's a bit weird, it's a bit quirky, but hey, they eat 3 times a day. You know, they have a bath in the mornings. They go to class, and, you know, it's that kind of what's behind the veil kind of thing.
Yeah.
Same again, right? We've made lots of comparisons to Madam, but they do sit really well together.
Yeah.
Similar to Madam, really. But I think, unlike Madam, there isn't really a clear, like, a recipient of hero worship in this book.
No, I mean, I wrote down a few, but I mean, they're all definitely striving towards something, but it's not on the same. I mean, for some of them, I guess Plasm and the whole kind of research and Neptune and everything is kind of their hero worship, but for Ines, I think she wants it though. That's also one of the things, is she can't understand why she doesn't want it. She wants to want it like the others do, and she doesn't.
I think that's trauma, isn't it?
Yeah.
Trauma response.
I mean, I put for hero worship of a particular figure or author, the first thing I put was Catherine House, because they end up one way or another brainwashed into kind of worshipping the house in a very strange kind of way.
Yeah, we should probably explain a little bit about that.
Yeah.
So there are pins. Now, I think these are closer to, like, what Americans term pins, as in, like, the enamel pins, rather than, like, a push pin that we would see.
Oh, right. I don't know
that's
how
Is that not how you saw them?
Well, I struggled to kind of imagine them. I ended up imagining them, like, with these like almost like acupuncture needles, but with a little like blob on the end.
Because I kind of saw them as like just big buttons, like buttons on your cardigan that, like, attached to you that way, kind of thing. Interesting. Okay. So anyway, these pins, in whatever physical form they took, were attached to their heads, their stomach, their back. And Victoria, who's like the leader of the school, she's not the head mistress, she's
the director.
The director, there we go. And she kind of like leads them into a chant. Really?
A guided meditation, isn't it?
Yeah, and it kind of chants, and with these pins, it connects them to the house, and when they're stressed or when they feel emotional, when they're sad, they start chanting this chant to themselves, and it calms them down and it reconnects them to the house and their love for the house. And it's really creepy.
It's really creepy. It's almost like
every week.
It's like positive affirmations, but gone haywire.
Yeah, essentially. And it's supposedly like the plasm in these pins that is wiring them to the house, almost.
Yeah, the way I understood it was that the pins allow the plasm to communicate with your body to be able to fix it.
Yeah, because that's what they call it, don't they? Like mending. Yeah. And I guess that's a dual meaning there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like the rending and
the whole plasm thing. It's
a bit of a brain teaser, that one, isn't it?
Yeah. I think for me, collected with like the institution of Catherine House, and then this kind of like pseudoscience thing going on. Now I don't want to be considered fair game, but it did kind of remind me a little bit of Scientology.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And the way that works.
I literally just read a book about cults, so
again, not looking here for my own webpage to be smeared, but it is a little bit like Scientology. They're all like scrabbling to kind of be better, be at the top, to kind of be worthy of, what would be considered in Scientology going clear, able to kind of unlock the secrets of what plasm is.
Being chosen.
And then finding out it's an alien called Xanadu or whatever it is that they believe in. But basically, I mean, the truth of plasm, I don't think even the people playing around with it know.
No, because that's what they're researching, isn't it? They don't know what the limits of this is, and that's what they're willfully testing on animals and a whole university of students.
Yeah.
And themselves. I think there's definitely a lot of the language of cults in the language of Catherine.
Yes.
Because they have their own strange terms that don't mean anything outside of the school. Yeah. Like concentrations, and I wrote a few more down. Did I? Forums. They have that's their end of year presentation. Their forums. All of the teachers are referred to as M name, like completely gender neutral. No Mr, no Mrs, no sir, no ma'am, just M. So M David. And that kind of that specific language trapping of that insular society is very reminiscent of cults, and how they make you kind of feel like you're special and you're part of a group because you know this secret language no one else does, and that makes you special. So it is definitely very culty.
Yeah, and then you've got Victoria as the figurehead for that, and I think again maybe not so much for Ines, although she does have she's definitely compelled by Victoria, she's very interested and kind of allured by her, but to me she reminded me a bit of President Snow from Hunger Games.
Interesting. See, as soon as you said President Snow, I thought of the other president that takes control in District 13.
Oh yeah, I see, yeah.
Because she's that kind of understated, look, we're friends, I care about you, you're my children, I'm protecting you.
I see what you mean.
No, you're not.
I think for me it was the unpleasant combination of smells. So Victoria smells like lilies and tobacco, and apparently I could not think of anything worse. Whereas I remember not that long ago when I first read Hunger Games, and I remember messaging you about that description of President Snow, and his breath smelled like blood.
Yeah, and he smells like roses because he has his rose garden.
Yeah, worst combination.
Because he leaves Katniss roses, doesn't he?
Yeah.
As a threat. Yeah, I see that.
But what I also wrote about Victoria, I know we're not doing character kind of analysis, but from a hero worship point of view, she's often depicted with the colour green, specifically emerald green in her dresses. She wears a ring, and it's like, to me, it was like the wizard at the end of the road in Oz.
Oh, okay.
And we know where that went. You know what I mean?
It's that false god, isn't it?
Yeah.
She's very godlike. She sits at the head, doesn't she? And she doesn't always speak. She just watches out over everyone.
Yeah.
And you don't get to speak to her one-on-one until your final year. I hadn't seen that.
Not in Kansas anymore.
No, we're definitely not.
Which does mean that Billie Jean is Toto. I'm just saying. Justice for Billie Jean.
I know. I genuinely thought Billie Jean was going to be like throughout the novel. I wasn't expecting to lose Billie Jean so early.
So, Billie Jean, if you don't know, is a little snail that Ines's roommate baby brings with her. Finds him on the lawn and kind of smuggles him in, and they put him in a little, him or her, because you don't know with snails, in a little tank. And then there's a room inspection because they're not allowed pets. But it's not the thing that, again, we're off on a way tangent here, but what I thought was really interesting is like, it's not actually clear whether baby squished Billie Jean or whether
the inspector.
Because I think there's a line that says, I don't know, I can't, something like, I'll have to find it, but it says something like, I can't understand why she did it, or I don't understand why she did it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, did baby squish the snail?
I kind of assumed baby did.
Did you? I didn't want to believe that.
Because she was so upset about it. I kind of figured she did it. Oh, I feel like I need to read that bit again now.
Welcome to Snail Pod.
You never know what you're going to find here. One of the other things that we always look at is old money and whether that collides with new money or no money. And I don't think that's really relevant to Catherine House.
No. I think money is just taken almost off the table.
Yeah, because they all arrive there, regardless of where they've come from. They're all coming with nothing. Their old lives are stripped away. And they're thrown into a new world where it's not really it's a non-issue, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're not allowed out of the school, so they can't go and buy anything. They all earn points to buy from the commissary equally. There's no difference in clothing or anything like that. It's just a non-issue, I think. Which is, I think, the first time that's come up as not present in one of the books this season, hasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, you still get a sense of a kind of financial hierarchy in terms of the students, the upperclassmen who basically will trade their items for services rendered, however you wish to interpret that. Yeah,
that's true. But we don't really see that directly much, do we? It's usually through Yaya. I think the only time we see money mentioned is Theo, because he comes from an incredibly rich family. But I think it says somewhere, but they're all basically evil. And
is that Theo or was it Nick?
Was it? I thought it was Theo. Let me see. Oh, it is Nick. You're right.
Pew pew.
Take Nick. His family owns half of Philadelphia, but they're obviously evil. It's time for your favourite.
The weather!
Hey!
We have weather. We have lots of weather in this book. The weather plays an important role in this book because of how terrible the upkeep of the house is. I think that's where the weather comes in.
Definitely.
It ends up having a direct effect on the characters. Because it's used as another way to further entrap them. So the cold kind of forces them together. You don't want to go out anyway, do you? In those kind of conditions, and the heat. The heat has obviously the same effect because you don't want to go out anywhere.
There's that scene where they're talking about they're in class and she's watching the sweat run down the neck of the person in front of them, and everyone no one can concentrate.
If you've ever had a lesson in a porter cabin,
oh god, yeah,
in summer term, then that I felt that so keenly.
Yeah. So gross. Our last tenet of dark academia is underdeveloped social skills, or the protagonist portrayed as an outsider.
Mm.
And I think Catherine House kind of messes with this one. It's there, but in an unexpected way, I think.
I mean, yeah, they're all outsiders in
Yeah.
their own ways.
And, like, that kind of pushes them together to form a community where none of them are outsiders.
Yeah. Apart from maybe the students, obviously, that are working under M. Neptune.
Oh, yeah, true.
They're very separate from everyone else. It's almost like
And
them
I feel
and
like
us.
that is the more traditional view, isn't it, in dark academia? Because we're normally in that exclusive set.
Yeah.
They're all very social because there's not much else to do.
No. I mean, I think at first Ines is very antisocial. I think doesn't even her
Yeah.
advisor like comment on it. So you're very antisocial, and she's like, yeah.
Yeah, I think
She doesn't want to.
yeah.
She doesn't play the game right away. She doesn't want to play the game right away. But then when they kind of threaten her with, "Well, you'll have to leave," she's kind of forced. I think she even says that she can force it and pretend if she has
Yeah.
to. And I think she basically does fake it until she makes it.
She does, yeah. Yeah, definitely. So cult-like.
Isn't
so
it?
cult-like. I think that kind of almost apathy of Ines in the beginning plays into kind of the start of the criticisms
Yeah.
of the novel. Because we've both said we loved this book, but it has such mixed reviews.
It does. It's
Like,
really quite divisive, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's usually not just middle of the road. People are Marmite about this book.
Yeah, they either love it or they hate it. And kind of, because we loved it so much, we kind of went looking for what it is that's putting people off. Because, I mean, I couldn't see it.
Me neither.
Could you? So, one thing I found actually in the Kirkus review, which is obviously a big American publication, like getting a Kirkus star is a big deal. And the apathy of Ines is one of the things that they pointed out.
Oh.
Which, I mean, I read, I'm going to read you the little quote in a minute, but I was like, I mean, I see what you're saying, but also no. So I think it does depend on what you're wanting from the book and what you are willing to just go along with.
Yeah.
Because Kirkus said, because Ines has experienced so much trauma, however, she's often disconnected and distant from the characters and events that propel the plot forward. Even her curiosity and ability to explore Catherine's depths are tamped down by depression and fear. This results in muted lyrical observation about what it feels like to be in the house in the woods, but it also means the reader only learns as much as Ines herself can see and process. In the end, we're shut out of the mysteries of Catherine House too. Like, I can see where they're going, but I feel like that's the idea.
Yeah. I think, I mean, also,
But that's just a
without her actions, we wouldn't, I don't know.
But also, that's just what a first-person narrative is.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, you're in that person's point of view, and whether that's reliable or not, and you can only see what that character sees, which makes those reveals and those mysteries even more interesting, because you're not seeing what's happening and then being frustrated at the character for being an idiot and not seeing it.
Yeah.
You're going through it with the character.
I mean, I really appreciated that we have a character here who has obviously suffered some trauma and is still going through the processing of that.
Yeah.
And, you know, is using substances, usually just a copious amount of alcohol to cope, as well as kind of using sex as well to feel something.
Yeah.
And I just really appreciated that about her character. Like, It wasn't just like a gimmick to use at first, like, oh, I'm so sad, I drink and I fuck around. Like, these were core, integral. I don't even want to call them flaws, because they're not flaws. They're coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think that shapes her path in Catherine. She wouldn't have been suspicious. She wouldn't have missed the things that she missed. She wouldn't have kind of fallen in with the people that she fell in with. She wouldn't have had the relationship with Baby that she did if she wasn't this person.
Yeah.
So...
and even would Theo have had a relationship with her if she wasn't the way she was? Because that was a kick in the teeth. That essentially
I was
Theo...
so angry.
Theo essentially was grooming her to become the next big experiment.
Yeah.
Which we haven't actually mentioned yet, but...
No, we haven't.
There's a older student called Alexander, who now goes by the name of Sandy, who is a reanimated corpse, for want of a better way of putting it.
So he died 6 years ago, and Ines finds this in a document in the attic, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Like the report of the death. And she kind of, one day, like when she comes out of her like alcohol stupor, as she's like trying to work and really desperately wants to know what plasm is and what's behind the locked doors of the school, she kind of clicks it together that it is him.
Yeah.
And he does walk around the school like a zombie, doesn't he?
Yeah. I mean, and also that's part of the reason I think that they're, allowed so much alcohol is like it's a way of control, for one. You know, they say it's giving them freedom, but it's just another way to keep them prisoner. And it wouldn't matter which character we saw the perspective from. They're all pickled half the time. I doubt their perspective is going to be that much more interesting than Ines's.
And also, it's that thing of like, if they see something they don't want the students to see, God, you must have been so drunk. You know,
exactly.
It's that cover. Like, they're
wow.
partying. They're not.
You were on the moonshine last night, were you? Like,
yeah. And it is that kind of that barrier there as well, and it's a distraction.
Yeah.
So sorry, Kirkus, but I vehemently disagree.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you had another big criticism that came up a lot, didn't you?
Yeah,
as well?
I mean it's similar, but it's more I think, rather than like character based, I saw a lot of people commenting that they felt the narrative was flat and that it had no climax. That you're never really told what the meaning of anything is. But I mean, I think that the uncertainty and the vagueness of the descriptions of things is kind of the point.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, like, with the lack of a climax, I think that's untrue, because it all builds to that point where Ines is sent to the tower and kind of told, actually, we've been grooming you to be a reanimated corpse. Are you going to choose to die for us?
And wouldn't you want to do that? Isn't that wonderful? Ugh, is it?
Don't you love Plasm and Catherine enough to do this?
I think for a lot of people, I think I can see how it could be frustrating to not have a concrete definition of what some of these things are, because they're not, because it's made up. So why couldn't you just make up a description for it? But I don't know. I liked the ambiguity to it. I think what I wrote down was about how it's almost like what we're doing here on this podcast, right? So we try and pin down what dark academia is. I mean, sure, you can see physical evidence of it, you can see it working, but ultimately it's a feeling. It's an incorporeal understanding that certain books are interconnected in certain ways.
Yes,
and that's
exactly that.
It's plasm. That's what dark academia is. But no, I don't.
Tagline right there.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, it also comes down to like what you're really into in a book. So, you know, we love the heck out of The Secret History, and you could probably argue that the narrative is quite dry or quite flat in that. But
yeah, you easily could, I think.
Yeah.
But as well, like, it's more character than plot.
Yeah.
You're working through Ines, aren't you?
Mm.
Like, I wanted to know what plasm is, but not as much as I was invested in Ines's journey.
Yeah.
So,
What I did find interesting is that our previous like criticisms of books that we featured on the podcast aren't really applicable here either. So questions about like homophobia or handling of LGBTQ plus issues, not really an issue here.
No lack of diversity, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So
handling of gender or gendered stereotypes. I mean, you could argue there is kind of like a culture of almost like slut shaming a little bit, but it's not within her group. It's not as prevalent.
No,
if that
and
makes
it
sense.
seems like most of the school just do what they want, don't they? And it's very fluid. Like there's no discussions, there's no coming out. It's just she sleeps with who she sleeps with, and it's entirely fluid.
Yeah,
the entire time, and that seems to be the case for a lot of characters as well, which I really liked, that fluidity there.
Yeah,
that was very refreshing for a Dark Academia text, and same with the diversity as well.
Yeah,
and that was just effortless. It was just part of. It wasn't an issue or a discussion like it was in Ace of Spades, like this lack of representation, or it was just the way that Catherine House is formed.
But I think where, obviously in the big granddaddy of the Secret History, there were issues of how the representation with women was handled, how there was racism going on there was a lack of diversity. Like, none of that is here.
No, it's not at all. It's not.
You could probably quite easily pick up on like small points here and there, but there's not like an undercurrent of enough for it to be an issue.
Yeah, it's not woven into the institution like it is with lots of the other texts.
Did you have any isolated elements that you wish to discuss?
I do. So a big one for me was the motif of the Gothic haunted house. I could talk about this for actual years, so I'm just going to be super brief. So basically, haunted house in capital G Gothic is how I see it as the house of the home provides an illusion of safety and family and love and belonging. But the house and its secrets and those things that you have kind of joined the house to obtain, in turn trap and oppress you into belonging and conformity.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Cool. And that's a really traditional kind of link between the house and the haunted house, because this idea of haunting and the secrets and the things that haunt the corridors of Catherine, these are part of why you have to be a part of this community to protect these secrets.
Yeah.
But they are also what is causing you to suffer at the hands of belonging in the house.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense at all.
Yes.
Cool.
I'm with it.
Cool. Okay. So if you've read any Shirley Jackson, specifically Haunting of Hill House or We Have Always Lived in the Castle, that will be a very familiar motif, even if you do not know it yet.
Yes.
It's that classic Southern Gothic or female oppression, and the social constructs of the house and the home and the place in the home. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna keep it there because otherwise I can just keep going. I wrote my dissertation on that topic and Shirley Jackson, so there's lots left. If you want to discuss with me, please do. The only other thing I had was there is so much intertextuality in this book.
Yes.
Like, there are so many kind of clear influences from The Secret History. We've talked endlessly about Madam. There's also, I noticed, like, I don't know whether they are direct and deliberate influences, but one line that made me think of The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, and another, Gatsby.
Uh-huh.
So Gatsby was, this is Yaya to Ines when they're looking through the commissary shipments, which Yaya has basically kind of found a way to access all of the good stuff before it goes in and becomes available to everybody else. She says, "I've always loved beautiful things," she whispered. "It's stupid, I know. I've gotten into the worst messes for stupid, beautiful things." And that screamed Gatsby to me.
Yeah, yeah.
But Yaya kind of defies that, like, beautiful little fool trope, which I really loved. And then The Yellow Wallpaper. It was probably completely unintentional, but this is what it made me think of. The wall next to the bed was discoloured, the white paint darkened to yellow. And that was immediate Yellow Wallpaper to me, because in The Yellow Wallpaper, it's a short feminist story. I think it's a 19th century story, isn't it? It's an early feminist text. And a woman is basically recovering from a quote mark illness / hysteria, and she's taken to a country house by her husband, and she's basically told to stay in her room and recuperate. And she's looking at the yellow wallpaper, and this patterns in the wallpaper, and it basically sends her mad, and she starts seeing things moving in the wallpaper, and she kind of becomes involved in this whole story that she's created around this house. And it kind of made me think of, like, the indoctrination of Catherine.
Yeah.
So that could just be my brain spiralling off, but that's what I got from that. What about you? Do you have any?
I mean, I wrote down the word bacchanal because we haven't really seen that aspect since Villains, and obviously
In Villains?
yeah, we talked about the bacchanal in Villains.
Oh yeah, the play in the lake.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah,
with you.
And obviously The Secret History, where it is the main thing. But there is this kind of element of Dionysian worship. I feel like but almost and like the Dionysian versus Apollo. It's almost taken to an even bigger extreme in Catherine House, because they're completely sloshed half the time. But then the academic, the sensible, the logical side is just, it's too intense. Like, it's too much. But everything is too much.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the work hard, play hard, but to the most extreme, isn't it?
Yeah. And I didn't write it. I saved a quote. Yeah, this is in her kind of third year, when she has almost like given over to it. She's with Theo. It's all great and wonderful.
Yeah.
And this, she says, the Greeks had used the same stars to conquer the world. We were like them, gods and heroes.
I highlighted that too.
I love that quote.
It's so good. Yeah. Yeah.
There is small mentions about, like, ancient Greece and the Greek gods and stuff throughout. It's like peppered through, isn't it?
Yeah, they talk about Homer at one point, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing I wrote down was tapestry. There are a lot of tapestries.
There are a lot of tapestries.
I couldn't really... I mean, I wasn't entirely sure what kind of connection I was trying to make, but I just kept seeing tapestries, and I was determined that it was a motif of something.
I think it is, because that's how, like, in the history of plasm at the school, like, that's how they announced this discovery to the world, wasn't it? This now disgraced professor demonstrated that he could knit a torn tapestry back together.
Yeah.
And
I think it was just this idea of like weaving a moment in time into a tapestry to then tear it apart and put it back together again.
Yeah.
And tapestries are there was always a tapestry on the wall. It was like a tapestry of this. I think it was a really odd one. I'm sure it was like something riding a bull, or I don't know. It was a very odd one. And I was like, on a tapestry? When she's in the
gallery?
Maybe. It's just like, oh, that's on a tapestry? That's very odd.
So, is Catherine House Dark Academia?
Yes.
I say yes too. I think absolutely. And that's just something that we were talking about while we were reading. And I think like our conclusion at the end of season 1 of the Dark Academicals, that although there are these tenets of Dark Academia, and if a book misses all of them, it's unlikely to be Dark Academia. But moreover, Dark Academia is a vibe.
It's a feeling.
It's this particular atmosphere, isn't it?
Yeah. You just
that
know.
You're searching for. Yeah. That is our season 1 conclusion.
It is. I'd be really interested to see if anyone else kind of agrees with us on what we've kind of on our judgments on these books, because it'll be interesting to see if our framework stands up, but also if our gut feeling
and like for other people's touch points of Dark Academia. And we're kind of in season 2, we are kind of gonna push the boundaries of our tenets of Dark Academia by looking at some fantasy, some magical realism, some thriller Dark Academia novels, as well as the traditional contemporary Dark Academia novels that season 1 has comprised of.
Yeah.
So we're going to see how that works through, the existing tropes of those other genres. So would you like to do the honours and reveal the 6 titles that will be coming to the Dark Academicals in season 2?
I can. Indeed. So this is our current running order. Of course, anything could happen between now and then. But currently, our first book for season 2, which we should be coming back...
End of May.
If you're listening to us way after May, hello, season 2 will be out now.
Please listen.
So the first book that we're going to tackle is the TikTok sensation, The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. TikTok sensation. I feel the need to keep saying that.
That's going to be interesting as well, to look at how that kind of such a hyped text, but in such a differently hyped way.
Yeah.
So,
and then we have Sleepwalking by Meg Wolitzer.
Well excited for this. I've only read one of Meg Wolitzer's books, Belzar, but I adored it.
So good.
So brilliant. That actually has Dark Academia vibes too.
It does. We could come back to that.
Taking a note.
We have The Maidens by Alex Michaelides, which I'm very much looking forward to reading. I've had it for quite a while now.
Yeah. Great cover too.
Isn't it? I mean, the cover is Dark Academia, if nothing else.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
For our Dark Academia adjacent title, we have The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde.
I love it.
We also have a YA title, The Mary Shelley Club by Goldie Moldavsky. And last but not least, The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater.
I am so ready to reread The Raven Boys.
Me too. And I'm still on book 2, but shh.
See, I've read the series twice, I want to say. So, and it's been a while. I am ready.
Gamesy has just been one of my book boyfriends for a very long time.
Yeah. So those are the 6 titles that are currently in our lineup for season 2 of the Dark Academicals. We're having a break, hopefully going on holiday, and we will be back at the end of May with our first episode on the Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake.
So we hope to see you when season 2 releases. And if this is your first time listening to our podcast, we have 6 other episodes that you can go and listen to. That would be really nice.
We really want to thank you for the support for season 1. We have loved our new podcast adventure, and we hope you've loved coming along with us too.
So until next time, bye.
Bye.